Greetings, family. This is Dia Nunez, founder and host of the HO Network, and this is a new format this evening. I thought it's important to sit down with our elders and to do this in person. You always hear me and Oba over the airways, but I thought that we'd do video this evening because, as you well know, yesterday was the 20th anniversary of the landmark case of CLBA. And there are a lot of things that Oba Ernesto Pichardo and I have talked about behind the scenes that he hasn't really shared with the public, and I want him to share all of these things with the family. I think that there are a lot of misperceptions, if you will, when it comes to the landmark case that happened with CLBA. So we're going to talk about some of those things. We're going to talk about many things this evening. So hello, family, people who are going to be watching this via YouTube and sharing with all your friends. And bendición, Oba.
Blessings. Once again, we're back.
Yes, we are in a different format. I see you.
Yeah, now we get to sit here for about 2 hours looking at each other, right? That's
Absolutely.
Yeah, because people listen to the program and they're saying, they don't put a face on it because they're listening to voices, right? Well, that happens to us too. Every time we do the H2O, we don't have a visual, right? So we've been suffering from the same, folks.
Well, it's nice to see you.
Now we're putting a face on each other here while we broadcast. Yeah, it's new for me too. I've never done this, but I've done plenty of TV. God knows I've done plenty of TV. But not sitting in this comfort zone, speaking to our people. It's quite different.
Yes, it is. They can see you, like so be good.
Like you said, we're celebrating, June 11th, 1993, Supreme Court decision. All 9 judges unanimously ruled in our favor. And that's what we're celebrating. And it's interesting because we're celebrating it with our first video program.
Indeed, and I thought that this was important, and I know y'all don't know. Oba fights me sometimes, but I think that it's important. Yes, I would imagine. But I think it's important not only that the family all over the world hears your voice or our voices, but they get to see who you are. And I know that you have a lot of people in your network, but I wanted people to see you, to tell your stories. I mean, I've heard them many, many times, the history and many private things that you've never really shared with the public. And since we're at the 20th anniversary, there are just certain misconceptions, things that need to be explained, and the importance. This is history on many different levels, not just Lukumi history and Yoruba history. It's history for, freedom of practicing your tradition, bigotry, all of these things. There are many things that you've broken down to me, and I'm like, aha, I understand. I get what you're saying. And again, family, next week, we're going to be on the other format, the one that you're used to, and I'm going to play the transcripts from court where you actually hear the judges and them arguing this case. It's very, very fascinating. You come to, at least I know that I came to a lot of realization. So we're going to do that next week, and we're also going to do commentary on it. But I just thought with the 20th anniversary that we should be blessed with your presence, seeing your face, if you will, to talk about some things. It's important, Oba.
No, I think it's 20 years since the ruling. It's really 26 years since the whole thing started, right? It was 1987 when we attempted to open the church in Hialeah. And within 24 hours after our first pre-opening celebration, which came out in the Miami Herald, we advertised it and we promoted it. Basically, we had the reporters out there, within 24 hours, city council members already went to the legal department requesting information on how to stop us from opening. So it's something that went from a very joyful, hopeful agenda for our religious future turned upside down on its head in 24 hours because the politicians moved against us very quickly. So we had to make very quick radical changes in what our approaches were going to be, and it was unfortunate in that regard because what was going to be a very ambitious and wonderful program this is a place that we were going to have to start with activities to get people out there to understand where we were and what our intentions were and what the planning was, which included constructing our facilities. It was a long-term project, It was a real good, wonderful, fabulous educational mission. And that got all put on hold 24 hours after we did our first gathering, So in that regard, it's unfortunate, right? Because it set us back quite a bit.
Well,
you can imagine where we could be, You could imagine where we could be if we were not disturbed in our agenda.
Well, I know that, the history, I know this is up on the CLBA website. However, before 1987, there are a lot of things that CLBA put into action in your mission statement. And also, CLBA actually became incorporated in the 70s, 1974 to be exact. So before this case had even hit the scene, you and your mother and your board that we're going to talk about, your think tank, Lukumi think tank, were doing a lot of things in the community to change the perception in the face of Lukumi. Is that correct? Can you talk a little bit about that, Oba?
That's the perfect starting point. What I keep getting as a feedback, people seem to just have some idea of what went on based on just the fact that we went to the Supreme Court and, okay, fine, we can practice animal sacrifices legally, and that's the scope of the knowledge, if you will. It's been such a long time as well that people just either don't know it or others that have forgotten. And things don't just happen overnight, right?
Indeed.
You don't open. The question here is, okay, we incorporated as a church, not as an association, as a church, like any other denomination in the state of Florida in 1974. That was the first important first step, And figure, from 1974 to 1987, there was a tremendous amount of work and accomplishments, groundbreaking stuff that took place that created the foundation for us to then go out and open this building and fully go public. Here we are, as an institution, with all of these construction plans and what have you, really upgrading everything that we had done since 1974. So the question is, and like you said, we do have pretty much a timeline in the CLBA website. There's under the history, people can kind of get a glimpse at the accomplishments. And I always bring everyone back to that, Why? One, because that's what set the foundation to what became the controversy and then what led us to the Supreme Court, right? That's the latter part of the history. The other thing is, the significance, the importance of those accomplishments prior to 1987, you know. And then, of course, we can always talk about, 20 years now from 87 to 93 from the legal standpoint. But then, we can also, there's so many aspects of this discussion, right? We can also get into, all right, what has happened, what are the observations, and what's been the history since 1993 to 2013. That's another conversation altogether, right? So we've got three parts to this story. You always have to start at the beginning. So, your question is right on point. The mission that we got through our family Egungs and Orishas was a mandate to begin to prepare ourselves for institutionalization. And it's important because when no one was even thinking about that, or even remotely thinking that it could be done, right? We were being told, we want you to, you need to follow this path, and this is how you get there. And it was a mandate for us to do that. So the key instruction there was, it was all about education, education, education. We were very active in the religious community. We had one of Miami's top active houses when it comes to religious practices. We do come from one of the founding houses here in Miami, founders of here in Miami and in Puerto Rico, which my elders were. So it was like, okay, we understand that part of it, right? Which is our own personal gaining our own knowledge of religious beliefs and practices. But it was this other thing that was new for us, which was Orishas and Egungs saying, yeah, you got that, you can keep on training and learning and doing what you're doing, right? But that's not what they were addressing. What they were addressing was that there was going to come a time where the new generation was going to need what we were going to build. They were going to need that. And over time, and this has been very consistent, they have told us it has to be a selfless mission for this to work. And two, it's not for this generation, it's for the new generations to come. That was a constant message. It still is the message. It has not changed, right? So, I was instructed that my starting point was academia. Now, when we speak of that, it's not the academia we know today at all. So let's put that in context. It's important. Let's think of the Civil Rights Movement. 1965 is when finally that fight became tangible for the African American people here in America, right? 1965. There was a lot of turmoil because you had that going. You also had Vietnam and all the protests and everything that was going on with that. So you've got two major issues going. That whole anti-war movement. The birth of the whole hippie movement. That's a third thing going on at the same time. And the fourth thing that was going on historically, Cubans, that first wave of Cubans fleeing Fidel Castro's regime, were still arriving here in Miami and in New York. So we've got this Cuban population that overwhelmingly, in the majority, they did not speak English. Very traumatic. Think of yourselves as having to leave your home and your life right here, right now, as we know it, here in America, and move to a foreign country that you do have no knowledge of their laws, their language, nothing. You just, you've got a floodgate open and the opportunity to get on a plane and get out before time runs out, and then Castro won't let anyone out, and then you're stuck, right? So everyone is under intense, chaotic situation. And everybody's fleeing. So you're leaving behind your family. You're leaving behind your belongings, your properties, everything you own, everything stays behind, because in the Cuban experience, all you got to leave Cuba with was with your suitcase, with one suitcase. And whatever money you could carry at that moment. And it couldn't have been too much either, because at the Havana airport, the soldiers would go through your bags and keep valuables. Like in my case, I came to during those times with my brother by ourselves, and I was 6 years old, and my luggage, I was my clothing, and when we arrived here in America and went to change our clothes, they had shredded our clothes, literally in rags. Everything was rags. So all of a sudden, what we were wearing was it. That was it. So it's starting from ground zero. Okay? So it's not as simple as it appears. This is a very complicated, many components to this discussion for people to understand, We always have to look at the times and what was going on in history, to understand and put our minds in at that point in time, to understand that otherwise we just take our minds and try to understand the past within the lens of our present, and then we're always criticizing, well, you could have done this, or, oh, well, you could have done that, or, oh, you know what I'm saying? We get into all that kind of thinking, which is irrelevant. Truth of the matter is, how were things at that time, and what were your resources and capabilities, and what was realistic and what wasn't. So here we are. Miami started doing ordinations to the priesthood by 1968, thereabouts. So figure, that was only 3 years after the Civil Rights Movement, right? And when we speak of the Civil Rights Movement, I see that in principle, although there are different scenarios, but in principle, the Civil Rights Movement was putting an end, or trying to put a final end to bigotry, Bigotry comes in so many ways and dressed in so many ways, but it comes at you. And when we listen to Martin Luther King's speeches and what he did in his lifetime and his accomplishments and what he was addressing and all that, there's this underlying aspect there, which is facing up to bigotry, and trying to put an end to it. Well, I like to think about today's program in that context, facing bigotry. The same, or many of the same principles at work during the civil rights movement, and other as well, other history that we can look at in American society, because we see that when we went, for example, to war against Japan, for example, right? And we look at the American history and what American society and law enforcement, what they did to the Japanese American population that we had here, and the Chinese, basically put them, went out there and everyone was a suspect, and they rounded everybody up and they did all this stuff to these people. Again, we see in that Japanese history, American Japanese history, we also see phases, aspects, if you will, of that underlying bigotry that's experienced here.
It seems like, Oba, before you go on, because I love how you storytelling, you give all these examples. Because I'm reading in between the lines here, and it seems that what you're saying to me and to the people is that due to the fact that you came from a socialist crazy regime, and due to the fact of history, which we have all seen, where people have been encased in bigotry, there is a bigotry that comes along with being in indigenous tradition in America. Let's just call a spade a spade. And when you're telling these stories, it reminds me when I became a Yawol, I will never forget this. And I was like, are you crazy? They told me, never show your Alekis. Make sure you hide your Alekis, you hide your Ide. And I used to look at them like, we're in America. I'm not, I don't know what you guys are talking about, but I'm proud to be a priestess of Yemaya. So it's just like, it seems that through Eglon and Orisha, you were mandated to legally, because it's one thing to practice. One can practice many things in this country. However, how the wider aspect of reality, meaning the legal system and the government sees you and categorizes you, is a completely different reality. This is what it seems like you're saying to me, Oba. Am I correct in my assumption?
Well, yeah. That distinction that you're making, it goes this way. It's one thing is what is legally acquired, right, by the social sanctioning systems that we have here, right? When we're talking legislation, we're talking about it's the whoops.
That may be too bright, but I'm drowning away. Keep talking, Oba.
Your camera is going a little weird, but
I'm like, hello. Okay, there we go.
Now you look like an egg talking to me or something.
I know. I'm so dark. I'm trying to find the
No, everything's behind you is spooky and dark and stuff. It's like an egg coming out of the shadows and talking,
Oh, that's so funny. Well, this is an Eglon house.
Right. The legal stuff just is the formal sanction apparatus in the society. That's how that works, right? Mm-hmm. But there's the other 50%, and perhaps even the more difficult one, the long-lasting one, that for it to correct itself. It could take generations for that to happen, which is, of course, the social component to this, the secular, right?
Correct.
And what you're saying there is I made that distinction in my news conference on the day that the ruling came down. When I was asked by all the media, what are your thoughts? How do you feel about this? You finally won, and da-da-da-da. Our response to them was, I just see it for what it is. We thank as a community and as a church, we're grateful that the Supreme Court justices, were honest in their opinion. But that's only one component to our religious freedoms. And by that I meant that I told them now we need to start the long term, that could be generational agenda of the social aspects to this. Just because, look, it's just like the civil rights movement. Let's go back to that as a metaphor. Just because civil rights got codified, right? And President Johnson signed off on these things, and Kennedy had his hands in all of this stuff, Okay, that's all great, Martin Luther King's work up to that point, fabulous, Got to that edge of the issue, and that accomplishment, which is huge. But you can't. We're still fighting the bigotry, are we not?
Oh, indeed.
You see, and that becomes that other part that I'm talking about. That it will take generations for it to clear out. You're still confronted with much of the same kinds of attitudes if you're driving through the South and you're a person of color. It's that simple, whether you like it or not. And you can then, bark all you want and go like, hey, you've got to serve me, or you got to do this, or you got to do that, or what's wrong with you, whitey? How could you express yourself? I've got civil rights too. Hey, people are people, and they're wired with that bigotry, and so it's an attitude. It's a character trait. It's something that, just because the law now says different, that does not instantly create or deliver a change in the attitudes of the people who were, for generations, the keepers of, the sustainers of bigotry. So it's not a light switch. It does not go away just because the law said so.
Well, this
just doesn't work right. Well, and the other thing that's important in America, in this point that we're making, the other thing that's important in America, and we certainly learned that as immigrants coming here, because Americans, if you live in America, everything's taken for granted, okay? But when you come from another country, you got to try to really realistically start figuring stuff out. So what? So we have a First Amendment. It says free speech and freedom of religion. What does freedom of religion in America mean?
What does that really mean? And we talked about the law. What does
it really mean? And we talked about this. What it really means, and I'll try to put it in a little nutshell here. The Constitution basically says that in America you have the right to believe in whatever God you want to believe. That's fine. But in America, you do not have the right to practice all of your beliefs just because they're your religious beliefs. So this idea, this constitutional idea that you believe in certain ways when it comes to religion, therefore the government cannot intervene, is constitutionally false. False. Okay. Example. The federal government decided long ago that to classify peyote among the dangerous, illegal, illicit drugs in the country. That is a neutral law. That applies to everyone in the society. And just because you're a Native American, since they applied it in a general and neutral manner, just because you're a Native American, like in the Smith case, you can't claim the use of peyote because it's your indigenous tradition to use it, is it? Because the federal government will come in and say, no, you cannot use religion as an argument. Now, you can continue to believe that in the use of peyote, what you cannot do is engage in the conduct of the peyote, is it?
And why is that?
Is that clear enough?
Yes, it is. And explain why. Because when you broke this down to me last night when we were having our 5-hour conversation, I was like, wow, that's really
you did that to me again.
I know. You know I always like to stalk you and keep you up. Oh, well, you'll sleep later. When you broke down why, from an ethical and moral standpoint of the society, that blew me away, because in American society, you know, the whole drug thing. So when it goes against the moral and ethical fabric of what society believes in reference to drugs, it's a no-go. You can still...
It's a no-go.
It's a no-go. And the way you broke it down was fabulous. Do it for the family, because it's, you know...
Well, yeah, basically, you know, everyone seems to go to the default idea of the First Amendment. Yeah, but there's other amendments of the Constitution, you know what I'm saying?
Indeed.
It's not like we only have one document here, First Amendment, and that's it. Oh, no. There is the constitutional amendment that says, you know, you have in America, we have the religious, we have the freedoms to congregate, we have the freedoms to establish ourselves, right? Like we did a church. Government cannot intervene in doing that, right? Because it's your faith. No, they can't do that, right? However, when you take all of the constitutional components to this beyond the First Amendment, but that are applicable to the First Amendment, you run into, and we did that. We did run into this in our trial court. Peyote is an illicit, it's a neutral law that says that it's an illicit drug, and no one in the society can handle it, can have it. Period. They can't use it, is it? And so you cannot come in now and say, yeah, but that's my religious beliefs, because they're going to go, no, it's an illicit drug, and therefore nobody in the society can use this legally, right? And I keep emphasizing that. No one in the society. So what you're asking as a Native American is for the federal government to establish an amendment to the drug as a drug, as long as being used in a religious for religious motivation, religious conduct among Native Americans. All right? In that context. You're asking them to give you exclusively, just for you, no one else in the society, the right to use an illicit drug, you know? And there's where the government says, no, we're not giving you an exclusive on this. This is banned for everyone in the society, period. Right? The Church of Satan, if the Church of Satan decides to say that they believe, and let's use the hypothetical examples. I mean, there's so many people out there that assert this without any real evidence, but whatever, we're not going to get into that argument. But let's say that they go, that we are the Church of Satan, and the Church of Satan believes that we must have sexual intercourse and sacrifice a young woman, a virgin. She has to be a virgin, therefore she's a minor. Here, we believe that the adult priest has the religious mandate to have sex with this minor virgin, and then in a ritual module, several of these Satan worshipers done gather around at the altar and sacrifice the virgin, because that's what we believe in. Well, you know what? In America, that's murder.
Exactly, right? So it doesn't
Okay.
This is an even better example.
Yeah, so they're going to come in and say, no, Mr. Satan, I don't think so. No. We catch you on that, you're going in for murder one. Because on top of that, you're saying that your motivation is that you believe in doing that, therefore we're talking about premeditated murder, therefore it's murder one. You're going to jail, my friend. And then you're going to get fried in the electric chair. No, this is not going to happen, is it? No, not in America. You can come in and say, hey, I'm a priest of the Maya faith. I'm Mayan or Aztec or whatever, and you're going to come over here and you're going to say, like, you know what? We're going to go back to our old days before you foreigners invaded our indigenous society and took over. We believe in standing up on pyramids and taking people's hearts, Just like in the old days, we still believe in that. Our gods mandate this. Well, you know what? In America, that's murder one. They're not going to allow that to happen. Southern churches, we have some of the what they're known as the snake handlers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, you can't go around using poisonous snakes and stuff like that in your congregation and people getting possessed and stuff with poisonous snakes. That's not legal because it presents a public health concern, right? Why? Because people can die from one of these poisonous snakes, and they have, isn't it? And they have. So, no, you're not going to get a state, or you're not going to get, certainly not the federal government to come in and say, yeah, that's fine. Go ahead and do this because it's religious. No, it's not going to happen, right? So those are just some simple examples, but very real, where different aspects of the Constitution are used to evaluate, to scrutinize your religious beliefs. Okay? And you've got to pass the test. Because if in any of the, for example, we had to hurdle through 5 different things that were thrown at us. Okay? And the state only has to prove 1 out of 5, and that's it. They ban it. So what most people understand our case to be, which was just the simple, narrow argument of animal sacrifice as a no-brainer issue, right? Because animals are killed every day for secular reasons, right? It kind of sounds like a no-brainer in the courtroom. Well, that's not true. It's not true. When, we got hit with 5 different aspects, 5 different arguments, and we had to win all 5 to get to where we are. For example, if anything that your religious belief practice is engaged in a conduct that poses a health concern, the state can step in and go, hold that, you're not doing that. Until you prove to the state in a courtroom otherwise. Right? One of the last cases that went into federal court, that what I was involved with, what was that all about? Same thing. They try to bring back the same argument that they could not prove in our CLBA case, which was using public health as an argument. So if the government can allege whatever the government wants, but when they do that as their governmental interest, we're the ones that are challenged with the burden of proof is on us to prove them wrong. Okay? All they need to do is throw out the allegation at you. So we're always in that defense, in that mode. All they have to do is allege it and have anything that remotely sounds intelligent. That's enough to get in court. And then the burden of proof against them is on us when you go into the courtroom. And I remember that happening to us. All right?
And, you know,
I remember vividly when the court turned around and they looked at our attorneys and said, looks like the burden of proof is on you, on us. All right? And they were making all these wild allegations of stuff that goes on in our practices. Way off the charts. That was enough. A suspicion is enough because the state has the suspicion. That's enough to get you into court and put you on prove it to the court that the state is wrong, that the city is wrong, that the government is wrong. And that's what happened to us, you see? That's what happened to us. So there's where you really experience it. That's where you really understand. Like for example, in our case, one of the things that the governmental interest, that the city put on the record was that they believed that minor children witnessing animal sacrifices, you know, that could cause psychological trauma to children. That was an off-the-charts allegation. Way out of the ballpark.
Well, I think that's
but they
interesting.
threw it in there anyway.
Right.
They threw it in there because it was a legal tactic to use that, you see? They knew they couldn't, that would go nowhere because we could disprove it, you see? However, they threw it in there because they can. And you know what? If we did not succeed in shooting that down in court, that meant that we could have won in the Supreme Court as we have it now, but children exposed to the sacrifice would have been banned. That aspect of it, of our practice.
Well, I think that that's interesting, seeing how that there are millions of children in America who live on farms and have slaughtered, you know, blah, blah, blah. And actually Paula is one of them. My stepdad, my grandmother, you know, so that's very interesting. And you
can make all those arguments.
Right. Well,
you can make all those arguments. But what I'm talking about is answering your original question. As a matter of law.
Right.
As a matter of constitutionality. Yes. It was legitimate for them to make such an allegation. It's legitimate.
Oh, absolutely.
And let me tell you something in what you just got through saying. You can say children born and raised in farms, you know? Well, they're in court saying that they're not talking about farm children. They're talking about your religious practice, the way you go about doing this. The case is not about scrutinizing the life of the farm. That's not in court. It's not in court. What's in court is what you, because of your religious beliefs, what you put in practice and how you put that in practice and the alleged impact, psychological impact that has in your religious conduct, in your religious practice. That's what's before the court. That's what's before the court. And then just because the city said so, such a concern qualifies as a legitimate governmental interest, and therefore it puts the burden on religion to prove them wrong. That's how it works. That's the reality, isn't it? That's how it works. So can you imagine, our case was about the city saying that because of public health concerns, they could not allow animal sacrifices in the city of Hialeah. That's what they said. That's what got us into court. So they kept saying, Mr. Pichardo can believe in whatever he wants. But Mr. Pichardo does not have the right. And we as a city cannot be forced to license Mr. Pichardo to sacrifice his chickens because we believe that presents a public health issue to us, to our city. That's enough. That's enough.
Right, but that's really a bedazzlement, not a bedazzlement, a bamboozlement to what the real issue is. The real issue is that you are from this heathen type of Afro-Cuban tradition that is not Christian. Therefore, it is different and foreign to us. Therefore, we're going to create some type of, smokescreen. So you don't really, right? Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Because let me just say, and I do have to say this and get this off my chest, because this is one thing that really annoys me about when people talk about this case. It's not about the aspect of sacrifice. It is the aspect of freedom of religion and bigotry and fighting that bigotry. And we talked about this in depth last night. That is beyond the point. It is about religious freedom because we are in these United States of a crazy America. So therefore, we have the right to practice our indigenous tradition, and because it did not align up with the secular thought, because ethically and morally is not even an issue, because every single day in America there are so-called, and I'm just saying, family, don't get offended, there are so-called Christians and Muslims and whatever who are eating at the dinner table a creature, a being that had a soul, and they're praying over it after it's been slaughtered and killed and so on and so forth. The way that we do things is very much spiritual and different. And now that I got that off my chest, you can continue. I'm just saying. Yeah, I'm just saying. Yeah.
Look, in America, it's simple. It's simple. It's fundamentally a Judeo-Christian origin, history, creation of this nation. Most of us understand and know what the arguments and concerns were by the framers, the founding fathers of the nation, what they were concerned with and what they were escaping from Europe, why they came here in the first place. And we do understand that free speech and freedom of religion was very important and dear to them, right? But it was so in the context of their points of reference, right? It wasn't, these framers, I've never read or seen anything in leading up to the construct of the First Amendment where they ever considered anything beyond whatever was Christianity per se, you see? Because that's who they were. No one of them sat there and was considering clean-cut, transparent argument of considering and accepting our faith or some other indigenous religion. That really wasn't it was not the intent of the law, is it? Not really. We're going to have all kinds of speculative arguments, intellectual arguments about that, but I've never seen anything that clear-cut. That comes later in the legislative history of cases that have come up before the court, you see? Mm-hmm. Where they have continued, it has continued to evolve. And, for example, did indigenous people and the African people being brought in as slaves, was American law and the Constitution being interpreted back then and applied to the people in plantations, recognizing and accepting their religious practices? I don't think so. They weren't even recognized as humans in America. At least in Cuba they were. You know? Here you weren't even considered a human. You're considered, kind of like welfare of a property, of a commodity, like if you were some animal.
Well, it was economics. It was all about economics, and that's.
We understand what motivated them, which was, of course, economy. But how does that translate into law? You see, and then we have to look at what was truly the legislative intent of the law, and then we have to look at how was that law finally edited. And the compromises, and in other words, how is that watered down in the construct of the language that goes to print and goes up for a vote in Congress, you see? Two different things. Because just you may have, and this happens still today, it's quite normal for a proposed law to go through the process. That is still today the process, you know? You propose, you put up a couple paragraphs of what the proposed intent of the legislation is. And then from that point, you start building it, you start constructing it, you start writing it up, you see? And the originality, the original intent, to the bottom line, what actually gets codified into law, there could be quite a lot of differences. Quite a lot of differences. So when we look at any of these cases, that's just the way the law is. We always have to look at what was the original legislative intent. We then have to look at what actually got written down and codified and passed. And then the third part that we have to do in law is read the legislative history. How was what was put in writing, how has that been interpreted over time in case histories, right? Real-time cases that went up before the court. How did the courts read this stuff? How did they analyze it, reason it, interpret it, and how did they rule on that language? You see? That's how law gets into a bill, that's how it gets codified, and later when we're talking courtroom, that's the stages that it goes through. The history, legislative history, what was the intent of the law originally, what got codified, and then what's the case law on it. They always look at that. For example, in the CLBA case, they looked at what was it? The commonly known kosher law, right? Mm-hmm. Well, the issue with the kosher law is that what was codified into law and accepted by the state was, as it has been in many other states, is acknowledging that the Jewish belief in kosher really applies to the method of inducing death to the animal. That's all. It is a religious belief on how the animal must be killed, you see? It's that narrow. And they believe that it has to be done by the instantaneous cutting of the carotid arteries of the animal, and the animal must be debleeded, you see? So that's a must. And that comes from their religious beliefs, right? But you see, in doing that and presenting it this way, they're not really talking about religion. They're not talking about having to get involved in some kind of ritualistic or ceremonial process, right? All they're saying is the method. Must be killed this way. Must be depleted this way. Is it? So it becomes this technical anatomy issue. That's how they got those laws in. What happens when you do that? States, what they've done with that proposal is, okay, fine, and this will then be regulated through the Department of Agriculture, and this can be made acceptable in the society as long as it is done for food consumption. Therefore, it must be done in a legalized, licensed slaughterhouse.
So it becomes a completely different issue, not a religious issue.
So then religion just got scrapped out of this.
Right.
But then, so they leave the religious component to people's beliefs, right? So if you buy meat that says it's got a kosher label on it, to the Jewish people you're saying that some rabbi is certifying that meat was killed in conformity to the religious method of inducing death, is it? That's what it means to the people, right? When they see that kosher label. But technically, as a matter of law, religion has nothing to do with it.
Right.
It's really there's no religious conduct and all this other complication. So, for example, when they tried to use that on us, and then the city would argue that we would have to do it that way if we wanted to, then they said, but we're not against Mr. Pichardo's religion. He can believe in whatever he wants, but as a matter of public health, this has to be done in a slaughterhouse and monitored and comply with agricultural laws that regulate these things. You see? That's what they did. And then they turned around and said, and so what we're saying to Mr. Pichardo is that the city of Hialeah does not allow slaughterhouses. So he's going to have to move out of Hialeah and go elsewhere with this, which was their original intent. Before we even got into a lawsuit, their original intent was what do we have, what can we use in order to stop this church from opening in our city. And that was the original intention. They even put that in public hearings. They even said that in public hearings. It's recorded. I've got those tapes.
Well,
that was their original intent. So everything else, all these other 5 things that they came up with by the time we sued and got into court, was all legal strategies, is it?
Well, it was important that you guys fought this case because you were proceeded to explain to me last night that.
Okay, now I'm talking to an egg. Where are you?
Hi,
fix that light, girl.
Hi, everybody. In the second segment, you will be able to see me more, but I don't want to stop because this is getting juicy, and we have the
keep doing that, I'm going to put some light on you,
We have the illumination of the candles. Just, this is an Egmoon house. Y'all will be okay. Right. You see my lips moving and my, I'm here.
Yeah, you're there somewhere. I get it. All right.
But I just wanted to say that it was important that you all went all the way to the Supreme Court because publicly people don't know that the city of Hialeah and all of them, as soon as you guys you were dropping it like it was hot in the community, period, it was a struggle. It was a fight. Because you guys were laying the foundation academically, you were laying the foundation within the police department, you were also laying the foundation for the prison system, you were going to the prisons and doing things, and you guys,
well, academically, before 1987, we created the network and the networking and the foundations to what was to be in 1987, right?
Right.
But I went, as I was instructed, I went to the university. I broke down the walls. Okay? I broke down the walls. Back then, the position of the anthropologist was that people like ourselves, any indigenous person that they as scholars go to interview, had the confidentiality protection under the law, that they could come and interview you and keep you anonymous, and everything that you're saying would not come back and haunt you, because they can offer legal protection for the information. They also would come, in other words, we were classified as informants under anthropology, okay? And the rule of thumb there was that the scholar would never publish anything or author anything with the informant. They would never bring the informant out to the public, where to a college to do a presentation or anything like that. In other words, the scholar becomes the expert, the scholar becomes the filter, the scholar is the one that reinterprets what you believe and what you practice, and they put it within the framework of anthropologists, and this is what they have the right to speak about and publish. The information source, being the indigenous practitioner, is kept out of the equation. This was 1974, isn't it? It's not the anthropologist you know now. It's not the anthropology you're reading in books now. That has evolved. In 1974, we were ghosts. And anthropologists would very upfront let their audience always know and sell us, present us as basically a secretive society.
So basically what it seems like what you're saying is, okay, you've been mandated by Orisha and Egun to go out
to break that down,
to break it down, to deal with academia. However, in the 1970s,
and I did.
And yes, you have, to work with academia, working within the Hialeah community and Florida and all over the country and the world. Let's just call a spade a spade. Then, they're like,
I still argue when I hear. I've spent decades arguing publicly and saying because the secular uses these key words to validate, right? And create these status. The scholar, because they have a degree, is always presented as the expert in the field. So I've always said, an expert compared to what exactly?
I'm sorry.
Compared to what? Because if this person is having to go and do field research and do their ethnography, put this, whatever we say to them, in writing, and then they basically, alter that and reconstruct that and put it in their terms for their own consumption in the university.
Right.
What expertise? How is it that this scholar who's still going around trying to figure out what we believe in and what we do and how we do it and document these things, right? Then who's the real expert? The real expert is the Orisha practitioner. It is the priest and priestess of this faith. So I would always say, with the years that I've had in my priesthood practice, my level of knowledge of my religion puts me in the authority chair to tell this scholar what I know, right? At that moment, that scholar is the student. How can the student leave and go the next week back to college and present themselves in a classroom or be interviewed by media and be presented as the expert?
Happens all
How
the
can he
time.
be an expert if he's still a student? It's just mind-boggling. So I've always argued that. And I still do sometimes with reporters when they call me, oh, well, we have this expert that's going to be on the panel with you, Mr. Pichardo. And then what to discuss what exactly, Mr. Reporter? I do this all the time.
Well, see, that's why I'm saying
We're
this
talk
case.
About, this interview is one more time about chickens? Really?
Right. Well, that's why I said. Well, that's why I said it was important for you to come up and to do this case, because they were like, he's been in academia, he's changed it on this reality. Oh, he wants to open up a church. He wants to open up a church and make this legal. Oh, no, we got to stop this. So this is why, like, this case is very monumental in nature, and it's about religious freedom for not just us, but all indigenous tradition and beyond, because as we talked about in private, there have been, I think, 3,500 or more cases that have cited the CLBA case since it went down in 1993, and is continuously being cited in court cases due to any type of religious freedom. So it's so much more than what people perceive it to be, and I think that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this show and us to get real comfortable with people, because they're really not understanding. This is about religious freedom on any level. And of course, it's all religious freedom. Look, even, when we even go back to slave history, we're boxed in, we're kind of one-sided view, because even by the language that we're using, slavery, right? So we're always pointing to the conditions, to the harsh treatment, to the hard work, right? And the confinement, right? The confinement of the people to their plantation life, that exploitation. We rarely hear the other side to this, which is those people also had religious beliefs. What happened to that? How was that viewed, right, back then? And look, just in short, right, just the mere fact that in the 70s I had to go to academia, for heaven's sake, to start breaking those barriers down. That begins to tell you that we were still in the plantation. Come on now, think about this, people. Plantation.
We're not talking about
plantation.
We're not talking about you, the human, because you're brown or black.
Mental plantation.
Whether you're confined to this farm or not. I'm saying religious plantation. We're still locked into the religious slavery, the psychological, and not only the psychological, but prior to CLBA, the practical, which is your conduct, your behavior, your ability to practice your faith without being perceived as secretive, cultish, and violating law. Making you a criminal suspect before proven guilty. So we can sit here and continue and, revisit for another billion hours the discussions over slavery, But that discussion, at least in my years of studying slavery and understanding it and whatever, it still told me nothing about, other than in the context of Cuba, that we know that the Spaniards did 1 day a week as a strategy allow some religious practices to take place in the confinement of the respective or individual plantations, because cross or gathering of these populations from neighboring plantations never took place. Is it? And after abolition, in the late 1800s, after abolition, all the way up to the Cuba's Constitution of 1940, which is really the establishment of the Cuban Republic. 1940. It was yesterday, you know? Even what came thereafter, the 1940 Constitution did recognize freedom of religion as we have it here in America and free speech as we have it here in America. So Cubans were familiar with the First Amendment of the United States. It was argued and adopted in our own Constitution, is it? But still in 1940, all our Orishas were being tolerated. But as a matter of law, it was, don't you think that just because we got a First Amendment here that you guys are going to get away with your stuff. There's other ways. So it's, again, what I mean or I point to in this conversation of fighting, right? Bigotry. It has always been driven, this underlying component here, always by reduction equals bigotry. Because it defies logic, okay? Just defies it, really. If we're speaking and truly believing in a freedom of religion, there's no place for that. But it's always reduces itself to bigotry. Bigotry. So what I'm saying here is that our religious mission with CLBA was about getting educated at the secular level and using our knowledge as we gained it to break down the barriers of everlasting bigotry.
Well, what did you tell me last night? I thought this was very profound because I had time to sleep on it. You know how I do. What did Egun and Orisha tell you and your mother that what this mission was for? That it wasn't for you in the now. It was for what? It was for what?
It was to be a selfless mission from our point of view, right? We had to, everything we did, we had to be consistent with it being a selfless contribution to everything, to the whole project, to the whole mission. For this to work, and that this was for future generations who were going to need this. It was not about our present. It was for the future.
And I find that deep and profound because, going back to Egun, Egun be blowing up the spot. Now that we've always been monitored. People have just been zombified and bamboozled into thinking that, however, now with I'm understanding things more because the old you're talking about scandal and things coming out into the open.
Right.
People have really I think my generation and the younger generations, not the old guard, the new anything, when it comes to indigenous tradition, really take things for granted. They're not really understanding, but things are about to go on lockdown. You see what I'm saying? So I'm telling you, Egun is on point, and you can't, sometimes you have to fight fire with fire, and yes, the government and the propaganda and all these things. However, sometimes you have to play their own game in order to create tools to protect oneself. So I think that it's very profound that in the media, which is an old dude that just came out this week about, us being monitored and, now we have proof. We always knew it went down. However, I think that this monitorization will be in a wider span of religiosity. It could be indigenous. It could be your conspiracy belief or anything. So I just find it very profound that Egun told you and your mother that this is for the future generations, because I just have this feeling as time progresses on, it's going to get real hectic for people who do not believe in the secular ways of being, religiously, spiritually, all kinds of things. So I just think it's very much profound, and I don't know, it's just really important, and I'm glad that you're expounding upon the realness and the why, and not what people really think it is, because it's so much more.
This is why, that early mission up to 87, this is why, we like to use in America, when someone steps to the plate and starts challenging a certain status quo, and the status quo does not have answers. And they're breaking down, all right? Then the one doing it is always characterized in the media and in public as this is a controversial person.
Right.
They put that little controversial label on you. And I've always said, well, if you feel that I'm controversial and you feel comfortable in labeling me that way, fine. I don't particularly care what you call me. I've been called so many things, probably somebody could have written an encyclopedia of all the words. But, so it's not about, you can call me whatever you want, You can try to characterize my work whichever way you want. The bottom line is, our family's mandate, going back to 74, was to create a corporation that was a church corporation, not a club, not some other social corporation, not an egg bay, as we call these corporations today. No, a charter, recognized charter in the state that says church, place of worship, et cetera,
Because I know people fought you on that. They fought you on that whole thing.
And people still fight it. There's some people out there that still fight it, for heaven's sakes. It doesn't make any sense to me, but they do it. Okay? Now, the point here being, we're following our mandate. That's it. And the mandate from day one was, you listen to Orisha and Egun because we are the one that governs. People do not. We do, right? People worship us. We don't worship the people, right? That's how this works. Hello, right? And so they're saying, this is why, this is the mandate, and this is how you're going to do it, and we're going to be telling you how to walk the walk. And the walk is that we're facing, look, I had to break down the academic barriers in the universities. I had to do it with integrity so that it would be long-lasting, creating a standard, an image of seriousness, of validity, of value, bringing out what is in fact mainstream of our, within our religion, what is in fact mainstream in the secular society, Bring that out and show that to them and tell them and educate them. Because their perception was the colonial perception that black means backwards, savages, barbaric, criminal,
Unevolved.
Unevolved, yeah. Right? Ignorant. Because if you're black, then you're supposed to be ignorant and stupid, all that other nonsense. We're back to bigotry, you see? And so, it was go in there and break those walls down. Go and do it. When I pulled off the first local conferences on Orisha worship and others that were done, which were conferences, but these were really debates that aired and they were published internationally. Those were all first time things that were being done. Nobody else had ever done it. Taking on the Catholic Church personally on debates, having the priests there, sitting right there, and let's go at it. Let's debate. Because they have always been at the forefront of characterizing who we are, why we are the way we are, what we believe in, and what we practice. They've always characterized us. They've always told the broader society how they view us, claiming that what they're saying is empirical truth, when it's not. It's not. So my initial work was to create those scenarios, take on those public challenges, and take that priest and put him in there and disprove all of his erroneous information. Break it down. Break it down. The media, break it down. We did. To all the way to going into hospitals. Back in the 70s, anyone here would go into the hospital, they would register as Catholics because there was no other category for them to register, unless you said you were Protestant or something, you see. Well, I had to go in there and break the hospitals down and show them that not only was that immoral for them to keep doing, it was actually legally discriminatory. So, broke that down. Before, back then in those days, you would walk into the ER room, rescue would pick you up and haul you to the ER room, and if you had any Alekas on or an E-Day on your wrist, right, the bracelets or our necklaces, the ER personnel would automatically force you to remove them. But if you were wearing any other gadget, it was okay. Just because it was different. You had to take it off, imposed by hospital policy. You got to take it off. Okay? So we went to work I created the first team here of people that were specialized on Afro-Caribbean religions to go into the hospitals and teach the staff there how to respect this stuff, to identify it, learn what it is, and learn why you shouldn't be touching it.
Well, Oba, it's interesting that you say that.
I just did a class 3 weeks ago in Barry University, which is a Catholic university, at the nursing school there, for nursing practitioners from all over the state. I did a 3-hour class for them. And still today, they were confused about our stuff. They're seeing it, but they're confused about it. Still today, I had to go right down. I felt like I was back in the 70s talking to a new group of people. So just because you say it once didn't stick either, you know what I'm saying? The media is the same problem. You got this new generation of reporters out there. They ain't been around. They don't know what went on. They don't get it. So it's like, rewind my brain and having the same old darn discussions all over again. But we went to state attorney's office. In the name of CLBA, I created the first law enforcement training on Afro-Caribbean religions. These were accredited through the Department of Regulation of the state of Florida, and myself and the rest of the teachers and instructors on the team, we were all certified by the state of Florida, and we all got our certificate signed by the governor to teach this stuff. We created all this stuff because of this mission, because of this CLBA mandate. You see? Those things created a huge network, right? From the secular standpoint. A huge network that not only gave us hands-on knowledge, because you always get up on a class and you teach, but you always learn something from the student as well. Well, we spent years doing this. We learned a lot. But it was all following this selfless agenda and breaking barriers down. And then with the name of CLBA, I created the first exhibition of Orisha tools and 2-day conference at the Planetarium Museum here in Miami. That had never ever been done. That was presented to the elite audience of the society here in Miami. That was done. So, it took a lot. Funeral homes. We couldn't do our death rites to our people in funeral homes. We were having to bury our people with a crucifix in their hand.
You know what? There are a lot of...
And registering them at the funeral home as Catholic.
There are a lot of barriers that need to be broken, and as I'm listening to you, and we've had these conversations, I mean, man, I tell you, if I could record everything that we've talked about, this is Lukumi life in every aspect of the word, and it's not just breaking the barriers within the Catholic, the secular...
No, the barriers, it is Lukumi life. We're constantly being challenged by Osobo. By some form of misfortune, some obstacle, some human state of maliciousness. We're constantly, historically faced with that in our daily lives. So this is normal. For us, it's normal.
But
we're just talking about going out there and facing normal in the social context. That's all we're doing.
But see, these things are, what I was going to say is it's important in the outside, but it's also important within our own community because we also are ambassadors of the ideology of what we're supposed to be, that has been handed to us. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Don't try to act like y'all don't know, because y'all know what I'm talking about. You will get, if you get defensive about what I'm saying, then y'all need to check yourself. But I'm just saying these things are very much important. Like, you ask Lukumi or even a Yoruba person, well, what are the birth rights of a child? What are the marriage rights? What are the debt? They can't even tell you, and there are many of them. So, if we have these options, an organization, our elders giving us these options, fighting for these options for us, so we don't feel like we have to be forced to be something that we are not. It's just very much important. So that what you're talking about, the scope of this is huge, at least from my perspective. It's huge.
Look, I even had to go in there and challenge the police departments. For example, Miami-Dade County Police Department, which is the county police. We had to go in there and challenge them. Not only did I create the programs to teach them, but while I was teaching them, I encountered something that was interesting. Many of the officers taking these courses had their religious charms or their necklaces and stuff like that in their pant pockets. But it was police department policy that none of these people could reveal that, could be wearing any of it under their uniform. They couldn't wear it under their uniform, for heaven's sakes. So, I personally went and had a couple of meetings with the law division. And yeah, I faced bigotry in that argument. You bet I did. And these are the lawyers for the police department. Okay? And it was challenging, but that was part of the mission. Right. Get in there and make your argument and get it straightened out. Well, to my pleasure, today I see police officers. In fact, I had the pleasure, while we were still going through the judicial process at CLBA with the city of Hialeah, we had still not gone into court. There were two cases that arose of two police officers, one Cuban guy and one American guy, who were both of them had gone through the initial ceremony of receiving their reliquias, their sacred necklaces, right? Mm-hmm. Well, boy, they got themselves in hot water because the mayor wanted to get at him, okay? And in the middle of going through, unfolding and this whole mess of the church against the mayor, because he was the head honcho with this, I actually went out and got the evidence and disproved the mayor's evidence, and those two police officers had to be reinstated. And I defended them, and I did that extraordinary work to get the evidence, because I came to realize that these two officers, one Cuban and one American, had a madrina who owned a botanica there in Hialeah, a religious store. They were members of our faith. And you know what's funny? That the mayor had put those two officers walking the beat around the church, trying to see on a daily basis what they could charge us with, to do intel against us. And it turned out that they themselves got in trouble for other reasons. And I'm the one that got the evidence, and when they went to court, they won. They had to be reinstated. Pretty weird.
Well, that's a good segment into our next segment. We're going to take a little break because I want you to we're going to go down to the deep, dark depths, because I want people to know what you and your mother and your family and like people, we're going to go back in a time warp. What you experienced, the danger that you guys experienced, because you actually have shown me some of the hate mail letters. I mean, I couldn't even read some of it because it angered me, and it just got me too upset. But we're going to talk about it because the sacrifices that one had to make, not only you, but your mother, your family, and the danger that you guys sort of kind of put yourself in, with the FBI and all these people. It was just craziness. I want you to tell the family, because that's not what the public doesn't know these things. So we're going to take a little break, family, from recording, and then we will record the second part to this 20th anniversary of the landmark CLBA case, if you will, and go get your cafe con leche, whatever you have to get, and go to the potty, and we will be right back. I promise. I send you so much.